Hello and welcome to Behind the Bearcat. This is the podcast where the Northwest Missouri State University Career Services Office chats with Northwest faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends to hear about their career journeys, how they got to where they are, and how they became Bearcats. I'm Career Services Assistant Director Travis Klein.
And I'm Hannah Christian, the Director of Career Services here at Northwest. And today's esteemed guest on our show is
Kori Hoffmann, esteemed. I will take it. I am the Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs for Student Engagement and Development.
that's got to win some award for a very long and prestigious title.
Yeah, it hardly ever gets
right?
all the way spelled out. There's always some abbreviations going on
I
with
was going to
that
say,
one.
do you have a nice acronym for it? The
I don't.
AVP of SE,
No,
something like
I
that?
really
No.
should come up with something
You
for it.
should. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Just a lot of abbreviations.
Right. So maybe a good place to start is, what does that actually mean for those who don't speak higher ed?
Yeah, so it really encompasses a lot of different things. So probably the one that's most well known, I would say, with that is just our student organizations. So we have about 150 student organizations here on campus. So that ranges everything from your academic and major-based organizations to fraternity and sorority life, to intramural sports or sports clubs that go and compete against other schools around the region, around the nation. So all different kinds of things, a lot of ways for students to get involved there with our student organizations. But it also includes SACS, our Student Activities Council. They do a lot of programming on campus with speakers, comedians. They do our spring concert, the always popular grocery bingo, just a lot of different events like that. Student Senate is in that realm. It also encompasses student rights and responsibilities, so kind of our conduct processes on campus. So just a lot of different things are included in there.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of moving parts.
For sure, for sure. Oh, there's always, I mean, and I didn't even hit all of them. I mean, we have leadership development and there's just a lot of programming and things that we're doing at all times. So just a lot of ways for students to get involved and get connected is really what we're trying to do.
So how did you um can you kind of maybe tell us just your journey? How did you find Northwest? How did you get here? And then how did you move into this role?
Yeah, so it'll probably have to go back a little bit farther than
Yeah,
that.
go
We'll
go
take
way
we'll
back
take a
in the
little
day.
journey here. So I graduated with a degree in secondary social studies education. So I started off as a high school history teacher for 5 or 6 years. I can't quite remember exactly, but
And was that something, hold on, I gotta go
yeah,
even
go
back
for it.
just a
Yeah,
little
absolutely.
further.
Let's go.
Did you always did you want to be a teacher? You knew that that was something you always wanted to do, or why did you
No,
choose that as a major?
no, I really didn't. So I had, as you all probably know in the career services office, I was probably one of the very common students who come in and change their majors like 3 or 4 times and wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do. And I started having those conversations with myself about what is it that I want to do, that I like to do. And I started thinking back whenever I was younger in high school, maybe even middle school. I had some friends who were struggling with some classes, and their parents were like, "Hey, would you like to tutor them? We'll pay you some money to tutor, my own friend." Like, all right, I'll go hang out with my friend and talk about math or whatever. Sure, you're going to pay me for this? Yeah, why not? So I did that a little bit. And for some reason, that just kind of rung out to me. And I was like, maybe education, maybe that's what I should do after going through about 3 or 4 other ones. And so then I kind of started to dive into that and just really enjoyed it. And so obviously it's been a very good career for me because it seems like that has been the spot where working with students and things like that's just something that brings me a lot of joy. I tell people it keeps me feeling young. My son is 13. He doesn't like it when I know all the lingo and things that are going on. I started dropping some of the words that he's hearing at school or on TikTok, and he has no idea how I would ever know some of that terminology. And so, like that just comes from all the students here at Northwest and working with them on a daily basis. So that's kind of how it started. That's where it came from. So yes, it was not like a predetermined, definitely going to do this or anything like that. It took a little bit of searching and figuring out what did work and what didn't work. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I started off teaching social studies at the high school level, and I was kind of looking for that next level up. I wanted to kind of move into an administration role, and I was looking for some different opportunities. And it's been many years ago, probably at this point, it's been about 15 years ago, 16 years ago. Northwest helped facilitate the state of Missouri's online high school program. And so they were looking for some administrators for some different roles to help facilitate that program. And so I ended up coming up here and accepted that role and did that for a little bit. And then I'm a first generation college student. Whenever I talk about first generation, I think most people know what first generation is, but with my family, I mean grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers. I mean, nobody went to college in my family. I was the first one, like truly maybe a step second cousin, something or other, way far away went to college, but I was the first one. So, um, being that first generation college student, that was really important to me. And I saw an opportunity come up to work with our Upward Bound program here on campus. And so, as soon as I saw that, the working with the online program is hard to make those connections because you don't ever see those students. You're not working with those students. They're online, and so you communicate via email and things like that. But that's your communication. And so having those face to face conversations and connections was important. And so I had the opportunity to work in the Upward Bound program here at Northwest. Did that for about 3 years. It was great working with students who, are first generation college students and trying to make sure they're prepared and on the path to get into uh, post secondary education. So did that for a few years. And then it was just in passing one day. I was at a Northwest basketball game and started having conversation with somebody from student affairs, and we were just talking about same thing we're doing right now, kind of my career path. And they're like, "We need to get you into student affairs." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I've never really thought about that, but sure, why not?" And so, about 6 months later, here I was working in student affairs. I started off working in the conduct role, and then from there, moved into this AVP role. So I moved into this role about 8 years ago, and I've been working in student affairs for 12 years or so. So yeah, that's kind of my path to where I'm at right now. And so it's just a lot of the ways I've got to where I was at, I never really thought that that was the plan or the end goal. It just opportunities arose, and then I said, okay, I'll take advantage of that, try that, and see how it goes. And it's worked out well so far.
Can you share a little bit about I know people sort of think about like conduct, you talk about the role as like a conduct role. Can you share maybe a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes in terms of what it looks like when you report or something like what your role in that actually is?
Yeah, I don't do that as much anymore. We have somebody in that role, so I don't get as much of the conduct side of things. But I think it's a lot different than what people probably imagine it is. Most of the time, it's students who are making some poor choices at the wrong time, and it's just they know immediately afterwards, like that was a mistake. I would say the vast majority, 98% of the students that we would meet with, come in and have a conversation with them. They're like, "Yeah, that was just a poor decision. Just made some bad decisions." You're like, "All right, I can live with that. All right, we'll move on. We'll talk about things you need to do to reconcile that with the community or whatever the floor, or if it's in a residence hall or whatever it may be." But we talk a lot about it. People make mistakes all the time. It's not about the mistakes you make that define you as a person. It's what you do afterwards. Do you own up to those mistakes? Do you accept responsibility for them? Do you um, you know want to make yourself better and learn from that experience? And so those are the conversations that we had, like I said, the vast majority of the time. And so I think some people think it's just like this interrogation session or something. It's like an attorney and clients sort of going back and forth and cross examining witnesses. Nothing like that. It's just conversations is really what it is.
That's a good thing to bring out because
Hmm.
this is sort of our theme in terms of talking to people this semester has been kind of making transparent. Like everybody focuses on college. I have to go to college. I have to get a good career so I can be
Hmm.
successful. And it sort of got put into the background like you're here to learn, and learning often means making mistakes. And so, whether that's I've chosen the wrong major, like, oh no, I've gotten into this area and I don't like it, or I've made some bad decisions, like it's a growing process. It's not really, you're not here to to be successful all the time. Sometimes just being successful is just being willing to say, hey, I made a bad decision.
Mhm.
Oh, for sure. And
Thank you
success
for being here and helping me see that,
Right.
Yeah, success is defined in so many different ways. What's
Mhm.
successful for you may be different than successful for me, and like everybody's on their own journey and just understanding that. And so, heck, we all make mistakes. We're going to continue to make mistakes for the rest of our lives. I mean, that's just the way it goes. We hope to make fewer and fewer of those mistakes as we go along because we've learned from them as we go. I mean,
Right.
that's really what it's all about. And we talk about this a lot in student affairs. When students get here, this especially as freshmen, it is probably the biggest change in their life they will ever experience. I mean, truly, they are going from 18 years of, in most situations, having somebody look after them, tell them what to do, where to be, what they need to be focusing on, to all of a sudden you just kind of show up one day and you're dropped off and it's go figure it out. We hope that what we've taught you over the last 18 years sticks. And it's just like, especially those first couple of months, that first semester, I mean, it is a huge adjustment for students. I think people forget that sometimes. It's like, well, they're 18, they're an adult, they understand the decisions that they're making. And like, yeah, they do, but there's just a lot changing in their lives in those first few months, and so it takes a while to get those things figured out. And we're not even talking about school; we're talking about just life lessons in general. So
And I think
Yeah.
that's where student affairs is such a great area because you learn a lot in college in the classroom. Obviously, that's why everybody thinks about it and you come here. But it's also the stuff you do outside of class, the organizations, student government, the kind of stuff that you talked about, that's kind of under your purview. I feel like that's a huge part of growing as a person as well. You learn not only academically, but also you learn how to be a citizen, you learn how to live with people. There's so many of those kind of life skills that you just don't have when you live, in your parents' house, or you get that in college. So I think that's really important. I'm interested, Hannah and I both being career services people, neither one of us really used career services as students. So I'm interested, being the student affairs guy. Were you involved in college? Were you part of organizations? The stuff that you're kind of working with now. Were you taking advantage of that as a student, or were you like us and do as we say, not as we do?
So yeah, I was definitely involved whenever I was in college. I was a part of a fraternity, still am part of a fraternity. Whenever I was in school, that was really the only organization I was involved with. I did work a lot for our intramurals, so the campus rec department. I did not go to school at Northwest, but in the campus rec department school I went to, I officiated basketball games. Let me tell you, you learn a lot about conflict resolution
I
really
bet.
fast by being a referee for some intramural basketball games. Um, so, so yeah, I was involved from that perspective. I mean, I went to a fairly decent sized school, and I mean, I could walk across campus and see 10, 15 people I know just by the fact that I was involved in the fraternity and things like that. And so that's one of those keys that we talk about. Like when you get involved, it's not just about the involvement you have in the organization you're in. You're also making connections with all these other people, and it makes it feel a lot more like home and like a familiar place whenever you can walk across a campus and notice and hey, there's somebody I talked to yesterday or whatever, friends and acquaintances and things like that.
So working with all these organizations and working with students, you have quite a few student employees in that area. Can you maybe give us some, I don't know, pointers, tips, tricks for, how to be a good candidate for a job, or how to interview, or anything involved in like seeking out, applying for, interviewing for, and getting a job?
Yeah, the number one thing I can say is, well, one, I'd say even though it's a campus employment job or student employment, go ahead and work with career services on applying for that job because they can give you the tips and the tricks that you need. But the number one thing that I would say besides that is um, look at the job description and write your cover letters and format your resume to what the job description is, not just this scattershot one cover letter, one resume that I'm going to send to every single office because each office needs different things from their student employees. Um, and we know that certain student employee positions are highly competitive and highly sought after. And so for me, one of the easiest ways that I can start to go through those candidates is who has mentioned in their resume or their cover letter they have the skills or the experiences that we've listed in the job description. And that's where I start. And so if you've got those experiences with customer service, with answering phones, with being the front facing person of an office or at a store, even if it's, it doesn't have to be an office environment. If you've worked at a fast food restaurant and you've talked to customers and handled some conflicts with customers not satisfied with different things that are going on or whatever it may be, those are all skills that work really well for an office environment when you're answering phone calls and emails and things of that nature. And so make sure that you are, like I said, editing that resume and cover letter to fit with the job description of the job that you're applying for. Don't just use the same one for everything because, like I said, that's an easy way for me, at least in my experience, to go through and figure out who's shown these experiences and skills and who hasn't. And then I can start to narrow it down even further after that.
It's hard to, from that perspective for me, it's hard when you say I have attention to detail, but then you have sent this letter to Kori Hoffmann and you're using it to apply for my job. I'm like, do you really have that attention to detail?
Mhm.
I'm not so sure. So
Yeah, yeah, we
we
see
see
that
that a
too with
lot.
the cover letters that they've applied to other student employment positions on campus, but they send us the cover letter for those
Yep.
other student employment
Mhm.
jobs, not our student employment job. So yeah, those are those attention to detail things that they're not necessarily the end all be all, but they also, when it comes down, to time to make a decision, if you're weighing a couple candidates, I mean, that could be a deciding factor in it. So,
It really, and I if I had to share this with a student who is seeking employment, I would say it doesn't tell me that you really care about my
Mhm.
position, right?
mhm,
Like, I understand that you care from your own perspective that you want a position, but it doesn't show me that you're interested in my career
Mhm.
ambassador position versus, a student, an office assistant in another office. So it's just
yeah.
I wish they knew that. If I could say
Mhm.
put that out in the universe, like students, it makes us feel good as hiring managers when you use the correct name, hiring manager name, and position on your documents.
Well,
So
it's so
your
hard
hiring
too. I
manager to
think
feel good.
Yeah, I think it's so hard too because, I think we all know, as we talked about already, mistakes happen.
Mhm.
And we get it, like that they're going to happen. They happen for all of us. The unfortunate part is when you're applying for a job like that, that is for some of those applicants, that's the only knowledge we have of them
Mhm.
is that one experience. And so that's all we
Yep.
can really base it on. And so while it doesn't mean that, you know, we don't accept mistakes, it's also the only thing we have to evaluate at that point in time. So,
And it's
That's very
the
good.
volume of I know there have been times we've posted a job and we get 200 applications or 150 applications. And if I've got to go through 200 apps and I have a way to say absolutely no for the ones that call me the wrong name, like, and that can take half the people out of the pool, I'm going to do that because I don't have time to give 200 people a lot of attention, but I can give 100 people more attention than I can 200. So it's also a numbers game sometimes too. And sadly, with campus jobs, they can be really competitive. So,
oh, absolutely. I mean, when we have a front desk position open, I mean, it's typically one or two positions open. And like you said, we're anywhere from 100 to 200 applications for that
mhm,
one or two spots. So that's where we start. That's, at least for me, my first starting point is, do you have any type of experience or skills that we ask for in the job description? Do you have customer service and front desk type experience? So,
What
you
about with
mentioned, oh,
interviews? Oh,
no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna elaborate. Like, what about with interviews? Are there any insights you have for that part?
I don't know if I have any insights for those, I'll be honest. Ours aren't real. I would not say they are real difficult interviews once you've gotten to that point. It's more about getting to know the student, kind of what their interests are. Um, are they involved with student organizations on campus? Do they understand the functions of the university and our office? I like to learn more about students in those situations, just more on a personal level and
Mhm.
about maybe their leadership skills, or I like to ask them just questions about their experiences to see how they handle like situational things. So it's nothing like a gotcha situation. It's more of just tell me about a time whenever you've had to deal with a conflict with a customer. I want to hear about your experience and how you would handle that type of situation. So it's things of that nature. So it just gives me kind of an insight as far as how they would handle those same situations if they were in our office. So I think just having that experience is important. Um, the hard thing with that is sometimes you have those students that don't have experience, even though you'd
Mhm.
prefer people that would have experience. And so just thinking about, well, how would I handle that situation? Even if I
Mhm.
don't have that experience, how would I handle that experience if it happened?
And you also mentioned leadership training and that there are opportunities for that. And of course the student organizations have lots of chances for leadership. So what are some of those things students can do if they're looking to, maybe put some experience on their resume outside of jobs that they've had and through those student orgs?
Yeah, we always talk to students a lot about leadership, and I think sometimes students say, "Well, I don't have any leadership experience because I haven't had a formal position." I'm like, well, that's not leadership. I mean,
Hmm.
that is one area of leadership, but leadership could mean stepping up in a situation where you're the expert, even though you don't have a formal position or a formal title. You're working on a school project or whatever it may be, and you're like, "Hey, I know about this situation. Let me take it on. I'll lead this team really quick or lead this group through this area." So sometimes, even in the interview portion of things, as you mentioned, Hannah, they'll say, I don't have leadership experience. I'm like, well, have you ever done this? Have you ever stepped up and taken on a role, even though you weren't the formal person of leadership, in that area? And like, oh, yeah, I've done this and that or whatever. And like, okay, those are all leadership qualities and skills. And so, uh, trying to help students understand that they all have leadership qualities. I think sometimes some students believe that leadership is something you are born with. You're either a leader or you're not a leader, and that's not accurate. We all have those abilities. They're just skills that need to be developed, just like so many other things and so many other skills that we have. So it might come more naturally to some people than others, but they're in there for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. I think too, some students have found themselves in situations where they had to develop those skills
Hmm.
earlier or quicker, in sports or in doing, other types of projects in high school. But I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, everything you can learn it. You can learn
Hmm.
to be a better leader or learn to lead in situations that call for it.
It's
That's really good insight.
yeah, it's amazing how many student leaders I work with, and they'll have a situation they're dealing with and they need advice. They need somebody to talk to. How would you handle this? And so they'll come and talk to me, and we'll talk it through and we'll figure out a plan forward. But then I always kind of in my conversations with leadership's not what you thought it was going to be, is it? And they're like, no. I mean, nobody ever goes, oh yeah, it's just what I thought it was going to be. Everybody's like, no, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be, because nobody ever really sees when you're not in those positions the things that
Hmm.
happen behind the scenes or the issues that you are required to deal with or whatever it may be. Everybody just sees the title and thinks, oh, they're going to call me president or whatever, and it's going to be I just stand up there in the meeting and I just run through the agenda and it's no big deal. And nobody has any idea about all the other stuff that's happening that you have to manage with
Hmm.
it as well. And so I mean, I would say almost every student I talk to about that, like, yeah, this is nothing at all like I thought it was going to be. So, which is good. It's a good learning
Hmm.
experience.
And I think that holds true in every leadership position I've held. It just looks different from the outside than it does, when you're in that position of responsibility. So,
I think it's just a good lesson for everybody in general, because I think we have so many people just in society in general that think, well, if I was in that role, I'd be doing it this way or that way or whatever else. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned the most in my role, but also from working with students, is that you may think you have the information and you know how you would handle that situation, but chances are you only know a small bit of the
small bit. Yeah.
information.
Right.
And so there's so much more that's happening behind the scenes. And so having a little more empathy, and even though you may not understand the full situation, just understanding that whoever that leader is or the decisions they're making, or they're making tough decisions, and they're probably not black and white, very simple decisions to make. So
That was very good.
Yeah,
Anything else,
absolutely.
Travis?
Well, I was just going to say you've kind of already given some really good pieces of advice for students, but we always like to ask for advice, especially from people who work with students a lot. And I'd say, in your role, you're working with students from a large variety of areas. So, what are some things you see really successful students doing that maybe the ones who aren't as successful, what are they not doing that maybe they could be?
well, I think the standard for the person in my role is just get involved. I mean,
Hmm.
get involved with something. I would say a student organization, but it doesn't have to be a student organization. Student employment or whatever it may be. Intramurals. Get involved with something to make those connections. I think that's the most important thing. I don't know. I don't know if we want to bore everybody with statistics and everything like that, but obviously we've done the research here at Northwest, and without going into all the great detail, I mean, you are more successful if you're in an organization, if you're involved. I mean, whether that means successful means a GPA, whether that means that you are retained and come back the following year, that means graduation rates, whatever it may be, whatever, when it comes from an academic perspective, you're more successful on average if
Mm.
you're in a student organization. So that's our big push in general for our office, is just try to get as many students involved as possible, because we know it's not just the social benefits, which are wonderful and great, but the main reason you're here is to get a degree and to graduate and have that career. And so if you can find that little something that will help you, and we're not going to say being in an organization causes you to be a better student, but we know there's a correlation there somewhere. It's helping in some way. So take advantage of it. Think of tutoring or any other type
Mhm.
of programs we have. If there's things on campus that are going to help you be a better student or help you with your grades, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? Especially knowing at Northwest, with where so much of the resources that we have are no additional cost to students, and so they are. I used to give the kind of a presentation at SOAR, and I used to equate it to, we have all these things available to you, all these resources available to you. Nobody in today's day and age would go buy a brand new iPhone and use it only for making phone calls. But if all you do is come to Northwest and you go to class and that's all you do, you're essentially buying a brand new iPhone and you're only using it for making calls.
Mhm.
You're not using it for videos, you're not using it for pictures, you're not using it for text, you're not using it for social media. And that's just the stuff that I know how to do. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that people use their phones for. But so, you're just not getting the full benefits of it. So utilize it because it's here for you, and you should take advantage of those things.
Is there a place where if a student's kind of shopping for a student organization, they can find like a list of all of them or contacts for people to reach out to if they're interested in one?
Yep, absolutely. So on our main login page for the Northwest homepage, we have the login page, and there's Bearcat link there. So you can go to Bearcat link at the very top. Once you're on the Bearcat link page, you can click on organizations. You can filter it by the category types, as we talked about before, like academic and major based, or fraternity and sorority life, or sports clubs, or whatever it may be that you're looking for. So you can look in that way. And also, we offer what we call our involvement ambassadors. So we have 4 or 5 students that we hire. They help organization and organizational leaders help run their organizations at a higher level. But also, we do one-on-one sessions. So sometimes when students aren't going to get involved with organizations, there may be some anxiety from a social setting or things of that nature that are causing them to not want to get involved. And so one-on-one settings are sometimes better. And so you can always contact our front desk and they can work on getting students scheduled one-on-one with another student who can sit down and walk them through, like, just have conversations. What types of things are you interested in? What types of things are you not interested in? Would this be something interesting to you? Oh, you're interested in this area. Well, here are some clubs that we have. They'll even, offer to go to that first meeting. Hey, I'll meet you at 6:30 tonight so we can walk over to that first meeting together and we'll go sit in on it together. And so you can meet some people and, kind of help create that, situation where they feel more comfortable going to those organizational meetings and meeting those new people. So um, we've kind of silently rolled that out last year, and we're kind of building on that this year as we go along. But we've seen some traction with it.
Mhm.
Not as much as we'd like, but we could always have more students. But right now we have about 50% of our undergrad students who get involved with the student organization, and we would love to get that to 70-80%. So that's at least what we're shooting for.
Awesome. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's a good
fantastic.
piece of info. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
absolutely. I enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will do it for another episode of Behind the Bearcat, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to give us a thumbs up below. That helps out. Also, if you've not done so yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Also, we'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find Behind the Bearcat on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Plus, the audio podcast comes out on Fridays on all the major podcast platforms. Thanks again for watching Behind the Bearcat, and as always, we'll talk to you next time.